Good morning, everybody. Welcome to What's the Hazard? This is Doug. I'm here with Mark Hasebroock. You will remember him from the #1 rated episode in 2023.
Numero uno.
Numero uno. It was. I'm not kidding, man. And thank you for coming back.
Love being here.
Your episode was widely received. So, you know, my audience is primarily safety people, but there are people that, business owners, small business people, and other people in the world that support safety and health.
Sure.
And it got, I mean, even like old timers like Ferris and some of those guys, Flug, they reached out and told me that was incredible.
Oh, that's great.
They loved it. So
most of it was true. I mean,
a lot of it was true.
A lot of it was true.
I cannot get the vision of you coming back from spring break and all of the girls having purple feet from the moccasins.
God. Furious.
That was one of the greatest stories I've ever heard, man.
That actually was very true.
That was a true part of it.
Totally.
It was fantastic. Well, I thought this time maybe we would talk a little bit more about, you know, life today. Your origin story was fantastic, and the way that you progressed through the different ventures that you were involved in, I thought was fascinating. I would love to talk a little bit more about Dundee Venture Capital.
Sure.
Your current enterprise and what you're doing. I think I'm not an entrepreneurial guy, and so I see that, and I watch Shark Tank periodically. I don't know how realistic that is, but I watch some of those things. I don't always understand the money conversations, how they're valuing businesses, and Mr. Wonderful's talking shit, and I don't get it. You know, I just see that product looks like shit, and that one doesn't, you know?
So true.
I don't see any of that, but if we could talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
First, I got a couple of quick observations. First of all, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, the Grain Journal has a picture of Cheyenne Wolford, the entrepreneur behind Custom Concrete Specialists. He's a fantastic guy, very innovative. They show him here using a drone to inspect concrete grain elevators.
Nice.
I was really happy to see that. He's a terrific guy. He's a sponsor of the program, and really interesting. So check that out. If you're in the grain world, you might have already seen that. Number two, my wife is a runner, and she goes to Peak Performance or one of those stores, and she buys the socks there. I love the socks. They're kind of stretchy. They're a little bit lighter weight. Really nice.
They're like Bombas. I mean, there's Bombas that are...
Something very much like that. And so, but the challenge that I have is they have right and left on them, you know? And I put my socks on in the morning, kind of in the dark, haven't had my coffee yet. And I look down, and if they're mismatched, I have to change them.
Have to.
Do you? Are you that compulsive, or?
Yeah, and then it's like your day's off on the wrong foot, literally. You're like, I just did this wrong. Now what's going to happen?
I mean, are you the type of guy that could go through the day with
no?
I'd be
thinking about it like, well, this. Sometimes it's like, maybe I should go through the day like this.
Just to see
what happens.
If you can make it.
Will I be able to walk?
Right, I mean, exactly.
Is my balance off?
I did this morning, man, and it messed me up.
Yeah.
I mean, it threw me off at least 10 minutes out of my...
And are they really that different?
I don't think they're different
at all. Will your feet go like this?
Unless those ones that have like the toes in them, maybe, but...
Oh, yeah, true.
Are you a creature of habit? Do you have routines and habits?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's I love to work out in the morning, and I've just got this whole routine down that if I don't do it, I feel like things are off the rest of the day.
Talk a little bit about your routine. I mean, just elements of it. We mentioned before we started, this book was given to me. It was very interesting. Tools of Titans.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of a Tim Ferriss synopsis of his interviews with different big hitters and high performers, titans of industry perhaps, or healthcare, whatever.
It's a great book because you can just jump in the middle of it and just pick up with somebody. And
3 pages at a time.
Exactly. You don't have to sit down and read the thing front to back. Otherwise, you'd fall asleep really quick.
We're both public school guys, so reading an entire book like this, it seems daunting, but...
And no pictures.
And no pictures.
And just like, yeah, come on.
But you are the only Titan that's been on the program. I'm going to give Pete Suska a shout because he's a Titan.
Yeah.
But you are the Titan.
Oh, totally, yeah. I mean, when you look up Titans, that's me.
So they all have routines. They all talk about their daily routines and habits. So give me just a couple of things that working out in the morning.
Yeah, so I work out in the morning. I like to first get up. I read a lot first thing in the morning. I've got just a routine that I do for workouts, and 3 days a week it's strength training, and 3 days a week it's some cardio.
Nice.
So anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes of cardio, 30 to 45 minutes of strength training, and have just noticed that it really makes a difference. I mean, the whole day.
In your day.
In the day. I finish with I've got a sauna, and then for the last 6 months, I've been doing cold plunge.
Oh, dude.
I mean,
Tell me about it.
I started with just the little one that you'd put cubes in, right? And I thought, okay, what's the hype here? And I read a lot about the science of it. I didn't quite understand it, but I did know when I did it, I felt amazing. And particularly after exercise, particularly after a sauna. And the energy level that it gave me was like my coffee times 10. But the joints and the muscles and everything just felt wonderful. Then I gravitated more toward this one that has a temperature setting on it. And so it circulates the water. It keeps it at you can set it to whatever temp you want, but mine's at about 55 degrees. And it's really made a difference. I mean, I just feel wonderful throughout the day. Yeah.
This is really interesting to me. And I was kind of hoping you would be doing these things because I want to be able to correlate, success and energy and artistic, whatever that mindset is, that mindfulness with these practices, because I too read a lot about that, listen to a lot of podcasts about those things. Those are the people that tend to occupy most of my airspace, like Peter Attia, Andrew Huberman, Rhonda Patrick, all these people that are they're talking the longevity stuff. And the dry sauna and the ice plunge they're it, right? They are. It's
kind of fatty, and I some of these guys that do it, you just kind of go, really? They're a little over the top and preachy, and you just kind of go, okay, I get it. You're a self-made millionaire. You've got 6 hours a day to do this stuff. I mean, what about us average Joes? I mean, can it actually?
What does an average Titan do, actually?
I mean, come on. I mean, and so I really think it's legit. Now, placebo effect, maybe. But
not over that duration, probably.
Yeah, I've just noticed a difference. The other thing, I started measuring you'll laugh at this, but my pulse when I get out of the sauna, get in the cold plunge, and now get my average pulse down into the mid 40s when I'm in the water, from when it's 120 or so in the sauna, and, in the hundreds or so when I'm working out. And so the ability to take your heart rate, keep it at a level, and then drop it like that, and then keep it, in a very steady state, I think there's some benefit there.
I do too.
I mean, I think your heart was given so many beats your whole life, and the better you can treat it, you'll live longer.
Without question.
Yeah, and it goes to the thing you and I have talked about a little bit. It's just, I mean, how long are we going to be here? And can you extend that without being that guy where they're like, "Hi, Doug," screaming at you, and you got the oxygen tank, and it's just, can you be functional and just be, running around and doing things that you want to do every day? And so, if you can do that stuff yourself and not rely on Western medicine to kind of extend those things, why not?
I don't think you're actually masking symptoms like the AMA would typically do for us.
Right.
I think it's from what I've learned, it stimulates the creation of mitochondria, the conversion of white fat to brown fat.
There you go.
When you're in that cold plunge. I think it's fascinating. Now, I do the cold shower, which is almost... It seems like almost like a prison camp thing to me, because turning that water to cold and standing under that, I would rather plunge, I think. Did you start with the shower? Or you?
Oh, yeah. I just tried that. And
it's like needles.
It is, and it takes a while to really get used to that. The plunge is more difficult because it's like you're staring at it.
Circulating around.
Yeah, and you're like, well, maybe I could just not do it today.
Oh, it's always there. The plunge is just always there taunting you.
And, the other thing I do, and I've noticed a real benefit to this, is I still play hockey a couple times a week in this league called the Beer and Pretzel Hockey League. And I'm the general manager of Team AU, by the way. 13-time champion, which no big deal.
Right. That's a side note.
But, you know, last night we had the late game. It starts at 9:45. You get home at 11:15, 11:30. Your legs are kind of shot. And I jumped into the cold plunge, and it really, really helps my legs. And the circulation, bringing the heart rate down. And, you know, I went right to bed.
No shit.
Yeah, it really works. It really works.
I'm amazed that you're still playing hockey, and I don't mean that to be disrespectful,
No,
but
you
I cannot
be.
imagine myself playing hockey.
Yeah, well, it's something I've done since I was a little kid, and
That's incredible.
I'm not any good whatsoever, but it's more fun before the game and after the game. I think these
The
guys,
pretzels and the beer.
and the guys are great. They're just so much fun, and I just enjoy being around them. The fact that they tolerate me, I think, has to do with I bring water.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Yeah.
They're like, well, Haser's going to bring the water, so
Right.
you know, we'll let it play.
But the idea of the cold plunge,
Yep.
just as an anti-inflammatory, you know, all of that kind of stuff, I think is fascinating.
It is.
And I think there's
why
something to it.
require medicine to do that stuff? You can
Yeah.
do it yourself if you just, you know, you just read about it and get comfortable. And it doesn't have to be this over-the-top weird thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, all right, what supplements work for me? What exercise works for me? Should I try something like this? And it's not overnight, because it takes a while for your body to go, what are you doing? You know, and then, oh, this actually feels good. And then, you know, you realize you've just increased the quality of your life.
That's
So why
fantastic.
not, you
I
know?
love that. You mentioned, I don't mean to get off track here, but supplements.
Yeah.
Do you have a few go-to supplements that you think are useful? Are you trying to supplement for a specific health issue? I mean, or brain type supplementation,
a lot
or
of
what
the
are you
stuff
doing?
I do is just it's quality of life maybe 30 years from now. So, you know, if I can live to be 125, for instance, it's just
Why
it's one of those things where I just we've got a big family. I've got 8 grandkids. I want to be there for them.
Absolutely.
I want to be just able to get up out of the chair, to be able to run around in the backyard. I know that sounds like too simplistic, and you know, some people that is like, I take this collagen supplement because it does these things for whatever. It's just like, look, I know it's good for me. There's a company called, I think it's called Care Of, and they do these supplements that are you fill out this questionnaire, and then they'll put together a packet, and it's just a daily packet of these supplements of the things that you want. So it's geared toward you or me, because you might take something different. But for me, it's more just, you know, heart, brain, you know, joint health, and just, you know, feeling
Quality
good.
of life.
Totally.
As you said.
That's it. Yeah.
The wellness approach.
And a lot of protein. I mean, not over the top protein like you used to do in high school, but I mean, it's protein really is. It's a filler. It just, you know, it's great for your joints, your muscles. And I will share with you, let's see, last January, not a couple months ago, but a year or so ago, we were on family vacation, and I was looking at some photos, and I was looking pretty doughy. Like, what is that? You know, where did that all come from? I thought I felt okay. And so I determined that, you know, I was just a little bit overweight, and I wanted to lose, but I didn't want to be one of those like pineapple only diet for, you know, whatever. It was like, what do I have to cut out of this thing to effectively lose some weight, but not lose strength and flexibility and all that stuff? And I was about 202, so pretty big. And let's see, as of yesterday, I was 172. So that's about, you know,
And that's a significant difference in the stress on your joints. Probably helps your sleep.
I feel so much
Your
better.
apnea has calmed down a little bit.
And you know what it was? It was primarily cutting out sugar and processed
All that crap in the
carbs.
cupboard. Yeah.
Just eating a lot more protein. And so, you know, I didn't lose any weight the first like 6 weeks. And I thought, well, this is stupid. I mean, what am I doing? I'm going to go back to 5 guys.
Right.
But, you know, then all of a sudden lost a pound. And then it was like the next month lost another pound and a pound and a half. And it just was like one of those things.
A very gradual, as it's supposed to be.
And that's sustainable, I think, the way you do that.
And so describe, this stuff fascinates me. Hell with the safety stuff.
Way off track.
I just
Sorry,
said
guys.
the other one. No. But I think this is fascinating. And I think any performer, anybody that takes pride or at least, you know, considers their performance and their ability to perform at a higher level, these things are all really significant in that, truthfully. So talk a little bit about, I mean, where do you get your protein? Are you like, are you vegetarian, carnivore, omnivore? Are you getting...
No, I mean...
Do you drinking some protein?
Yeah, the protein drinks from Costco, which have 30 grams of protein in them, no sugar. It's a little too processed, but that's the best way to get it and quickly.
You bolus your protein.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
No, I don't shy away from meat or anything like that. I just I enjoy the stuff that, but do lean towards more protein when I can. And so there's some protein bars that I eat throughout the day. I try and get about 150 grams to maybe 200 of protein.
I'm going to tear up here, man. You are singing my song or speaking my language or whatever I mean to say.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. 150 grams.
Right
good
around
for you.
there. Yeah, and 100 ounces of water.
Because if you're following the recommended daily allowance crap, you're killing yourself.
No,
that stuff is all gibberish and ridiculous.
It's hard. I use MyFitnessPal, which is an app that's sometimes a little over the top with trying to do all these things, because you can't. If you go out to eat, you can't estimate what's in that and how do I. It's really difficult, but for the most part, it helped me get around these things. And I'd be sitting there at like 2 PM going, I'm already at 2,500 calories. What happened? I mean, for me to sustain this, I got to be at about 1,800 to 2,000 calories. And so I shifted the things that just made me feel full. And I noticed that it was a lot more protein stuff, or, you eat 20 strawberries, it's like maybe 100 calories. But those are good for you, high in vitamin C and the fiber and so forth. So and my body started to crave that stuff. But my God, it took forever.
Yeah.
But I think that's
But you were patient.
Sustainable. Just patient, because I noticed, wow, I lost 5 pounds in 5 months. That's pretty good.
That is good.
And then noticed, doing, I don't know if you've heard of Les Mills. It's a workout program.
Dude.
Body Pump is what it's called.
Yeah.
And it's like super high rep type things. And I mean, the first handful of workouts, I was just on the floor, drenched, just like that. I can't believe, I'm embarrassed. I can't even finish these workouts. But now, you get into a rhythm, particularly they work a lot on just squats and hamstrings, deadlifts and things that, are second nature to you. But as a swimmer, we never did those things. I mean, it was something super new to me. So I just noticed, a lot more flexibility, a lot more strength, and you shift. You start to lose a little bit of the chunkiness, but things just shift. You feel better. You just, and you just feel like you can do a lot more.
One of the guys that I listen to, read occasionally. But I primarily listen to nonfiction. I like to read fiction. I tend to listen to nonfiction. Whatever my brain processes.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different for me.
Yeah,
but Peter Attia, one of the guys that I listen to, who is kind of he used to be a surgeon, and now he's become this longevity type of specialist, and he's probably making 100 times more money doing that than he was as a surgeon, which seems odd. But he talks a lot about the centenarian decathlon. He goes, if you want to be 100 years old and be fit, the things that you want to do, you want to be able to carry a couple sacks of groceries up the stairs. You want to be able to get down on the floor and roll around with your grandchildren. Those are the things that you really want to do. You don't care how much you can deadlift or squat when you're 100, but you want to be able to participate in life. So he talks about things like VO2 max, like what you're describing, your cardio work, the hockey. He talks about grip strength as a sign, as an indicator of longevity, how much you can hold. So he talks about hanging. So when I go to the gym now, and it used to just be stand in front of the mirror and do curls until, you know, which is embarrassing to say, but, you know.
Yeah, that's what you did.
That's what I did. I mean,
right.
you know, now I go to the gym and I hang. I'll get on the chin-up bar and I just hang there for as long as possible. And then I carry plates. I'll just grab plates and I just walk around carrying plates. The other people in the gym look at me like, what the hell's wrong with this idiot, you know?
Yeah, he's like the plate replacement boy.
Yeah, I go, hey, over here, boy.
Let's go, bring him here.
Bring my plates. Exactly. But those are the kind of things that they recommend for grown people to try to improve that quality of life. And I think that is really fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for you because
it's good stuff. I mean,
it is good stuff.
I don't do it, you know, and it's difficult to talk about too because it's one of those things that it's very personal to me, and it's not something you come out and say, well, guess what I did? It's like when somebody tells you about their fantasy team. You're like, oh my God, are we going to talk about this right now?
Right.
Or, you know, what? It's just keep it to yourself. So, but on the other side of the coin, I do believe in part of what I do at Dundee Venture Capital is looking at trends and trying to peek around corners. I think the graying of America is a very, very big opportunity. And you and I are in that group.
Absolutely.
Because we're seeing people that are in their 60s and 70s saying, well, I don't want to quit. I mean, I kind of want to keep doing something. And yet somehow society along the way has said, wow, 65, you're done. And I think what we're seeing is people saying, no, I'm not done, but do make my life better. Do make my life more fun and more fulfilled, and tell me how to do that. And I think there'll be more participants in things like what you and I are talking about.
I would agree. Yeah. I totally agree. I don't think it's fringy anymore. I think it's may not be mainstream quite yet, but it's moving in that direction.
Totally, yeah.
And I think there are a lot of us that are, you know, that have reached that point where we are transitioning a little bit, where, you know, when we reflect back on those that, you know, your grandparents or whomever, and at a certain age you were old and you behaved like you were old. Yeah. And then it was just a fulfilling prophecy. Then you just became old. You hunched over and you couldn't, you know, I mean, and I think we look back and that's not quite how we want to see the last chapter of our lives, perhaps. And so we want to participate. So these are the things that will allow us to do that.
It's frightening too. I mean, you think about your life in thirds. If it's like 30, you know, 60, 90, it's like, is that it? Wow.
We are in that final third.
The final third. And I don't know. I think because you take care of yourself and that expectation of, all right, when I get to 90, I guess I'm dead. Maybe not. I mean, maybe when you're 90, you're still functioning and moving around and thinking and communicating and having fun. And I just wonder what that extension is going to be. And having seen friends of mine and their parents, and it's just like they're bags of bones and they just deteriorate. And I like, God, I don't want that.
And they've just accepted that as what was going to be inevitable. And it doesn't have to be, I don't think, which is interesting. Well, so you mentioned venture capital, Dundee Venture Capital. This is your company. Talk a little bit about what you do. I mean, there's a certain sector that you're interested in primarily, but you are funding startups to some degree, and you have a certain, you know, you're not looking for, well, you just...
Yeah, no. I think that's it's fair because not many people understand it, and we don't do a good job of explaining it either, I don't think. But you mentioned Shark Tank. I mean, to some degree, it's similar to that, and that what we do is we invest in startup companies, and these are people with ideas, and that's it.
That's where they are in the process.
That's where they are. They have an idea. They might have a product or a service. They might have some customers.
Okay.
But for the most part, it's super early, which means it's very risky. But it's what I identify with because I was in their shoes, you know, and I was on that side of the desk, so to speak, looking for capital to help fund a growing business. And it's hard to find that first round of funding. I mean, later when you're successful and things are working well, everybody wants to invest.
Right.
But it's that early stage that is the hardest. And so I started Dundee Venture Capital in 2010, which is hard to believe.
23 years ago, 24 years ago?
I mean, well, 14, but we're
14,
we're
sorry.
public school guys.
That's right. Yeah. I dropped out of engineering college. I don't know if I mentioned that.
But it's one of those things where I remember saying, why is nobody solving this? Why can't we in these kind of non-Silicon Valley, non-New York markets find money to help us grow our business? So that's why we started it.
Fantastic.
And
do you love it?
Yeah, you know, I think it's maybe a third leg to the stool. Like, you know, you read and you keep your brain sharp. You do physical type stuff to keep your body sharp. And this is maybe one of those things that provides the inspiration.
Okay.
Because
purpose. Gives you some purpose.
Yeah, I mean, I see these founders of these companies and I selfishly get my battery recharged by talking to them.
Totally.
Because they'll pitch me or our team and I'll sit there and go, this is fascinating. I never even thought of this. This is amazing. And I learn more from them than they will ever learn from me. And so we provide fuel. That's all we do. And most people in venture capital really inflate their own sense of value.
Right.
But for the most part, we're providing fuel in the form of cash.
But you're also coaching, mentoring to some degree.
A little bit. I mean, if they're good founders, we call them glass chewers. These are people that will just run through a wall and just like you give them a problem and they're just like, I'm going to solve this. You know, they're killers. The best thing we can do sometime is get out of the way. And the more I learn of this industry, the more I realize that these founders need some, like your own kids. It's like the coffee table is over there. Stop running through the living room, you know, and you keep watching them. And you're like, yeah, they're going to run into the coffee table. And, you know, ultimately they either do. Sometimes you grab them by the collar, and that's sort of what we have to do here. But for the most part, it's entertaining to watch them go from infancy to maybe, you know, early adolescence.
I'll bet it's thrilling.
It is.
And does it give you that same feeling that when you were doing that, when you were, I mean, is there
a little bit? But, you know, the frustrating thing for me is that I'm maybe 2 steps removed. So like, you know, Hayneedle, for instance, when we were growing Hayneedle, I was doing a lot of that in the early days, either from Barnes & Noble, I think, as we talked about, or from our attic. And our kids are running around underneath. It was the only place I could go. And I'm calling suppliers to find out, where can I buy these hammocks? Because our first product was hammocks. And, you know, you're just in that, I have to make this work type situation. And I identify with that with all of these founders. But the thing with growing your own business versus investing in a growing business is you're just 2 steps removed. And so I can say things like, hey, Doug, you know, I really think here's 2 things you might consider doing. You might say, yeah, great, Mark, and hang up and go, God, he's an idiot, you know. right. And he goes and does his own thing.
Sure.
But if it's my company, I'm going to do it.
Right.
And so it's kind of like you're the coach and influencer, but those folks have to do it.
Yeah. It is almost
It's
like
a little frustrating.
parenting to some
A little
degree.
bit. Yeah.
I would think. And so are there characteristics? What is it that, I mean, what says yes? What makes you say yes to a certain, are there characteristics within the mindset of that? Like you said, they're all animals, they're glass chewers. Is that critical?
It is. It's critical. And in fact, it's the 2 pieces of it are, you got to have a good sales founder and a good technical founder. And typically it's a technical founder. I've come up with a technical solution to a problem in the world. And boy, they've got it surrounded with all the technical aspects of why it's going to work. And then you say, well, let's walk through how we're going to sell this and who's going to buy it. Well, the market will just buy it. So, well, actually, you need to have somebody sell this. And I think I've said this 100 times in the last couple of months that, I get asked a lot, like, where do we get more people who can code? Nebraska and the Midwest and all these markets don't have enough people who can code. That's absolutely irrelevant. If you can't sell, none of that stuff matters. And we do not have enough salespeople. There's just not enough people being either trained in it or interested in it or have that natural ability to sell something.
Interesting.
And so I think that's a giant, giant gap. Our schools don't teach it. It's looked down upon, like, oh, you're a salesman.
Right. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. I think with the advent of AI, that a lot of coding is going to be probably displaced.
Yeah.
The need to learn how to code because AI will do it itself. And so that leaves you with how are you going to sell something? And there still is a need for face-to-face selling. And
I hope
there's
so.
not enough of that. Not enough. Yeah, it's a lost art. And it's conversation. It's connecting. I think the current generation is going to be hampered because of just doing this all day on their phones and not ability to communicate.
But what about the clients or the people that they're trying to attract are the same people to some degree, won't they be? So they can just, if they can look at each other through their phones in some way.
But then at the next level of that, if you can't write, it's irrelevant.
We have had that conversation.
Yeah.
And there was a comment in the book, in fact, about writing. The ability to write is everything. And
yeah, totally.
It encompasses so much. And so while both of my sons are yet to be career employed, shall we say, my older son is a snowboarding instructor out at Winter Park.
Good for him.
And he is loving it. He sends us videos all the time of this backcountry snowboard. We're like, oh my God, he's living the life that I should have lived,
Yeah, he's got to figure it out.
He's got, well, at least for now, right? At least for now. And my younger son is in school.
He's doing what he loves, right? So.
But they both write extremely well. And
Interesting.
I don't take credit for that. My mother was an English teacher. She was always a stickler about that. And I'm sure when we used to drop our kids off at Grandma's house, they were like, no, Grandma washes my mouth out with soap, if I dangle a participle, or whatever. So, but, in retrospect.
It's a lost art.
Yes.
It's a lost art. My wife, and she's a preschool teacher, but she continually corrects people. Like, somebody will say, him and I are going to go to, and she'll just go, oh, stop.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so
somebody should.
Yeah, and just the ability to do that.
Do you cringe when she does it, or are you just like?
No, I just
helpful.
know. I'm like, here it comes.
Right.
And good for her.
Oh, you're going to regret that.
Good for her. But I mean, it's a lost art.
It is.
When I see, in fact, I talk to, I call him kids. He's 22. He was like, I want to get in venture. And so tell me how to break into venture. And I said, well, look, here's a company. Tell me what you think of them. And he couldn't put a sentence together. It was just this meandering, rambling, kind of weird, disjointed thing. And I was like, what? I mean, I wasn't doing it to trick him. I was like, just tell me what you think of this company. Because this is a company we're looking at. Should we invest or not invest? And he just could not connect dots and then couldn't come to a conclusion. And you kind of say, well, that's sort of what we do.
Yeah, this is going to make it difficult if you can't do that.
And I do find, I think people that succeed in venture capital are former operators, people who have done things, been in an operating role because they empathize with the need to find a supplier and pay a supplier and do things on time and hire people, fire people, all of those things that have to do with operating a business. And no disrespect to like the quants who like to do the financial analysis of these companies. These are early stage companies that are probably going to either work quickly or die quickly. And they need attention. And they need to know from the market, this is working or isn't working. And to the degree that we can help steer that a little bit, we want to. Now, I'm very blessed, though, to have extremely talented partners.
Good for you. Yeah.
Because one of the things, like we joke, but I can't be the guy that they're rolling into meetings when I'm in my 90s and they're screaming at me like, he's the only decision maker.
Right. Mark.
Wake up.
Right.
And I'm drooling and they're just like, look, so I realized I have to have a talented team that at some point are going to take this thing over, because the legacy of what we want this to be is we helped create these businesses, and they were difference makers, both in people they employed, problems they solved, and victory for the people who invested in them. And that's it. So
can you explain to me, since I don't understand it,
Sure.
how the reward works for you as an investor? So I come to you and I've got this great idea, and you think, wow, that is a great idea, and maybe we are like-minded in that, and you give us money, and then how do I return your investment to you? How do you gain from that?
Yeah, so for us, we become what's called an equity partner. So we're shareholders in your business.
Okay.
So let's just say it's your business and you're the only shareholder, and you come to us and we invest in your business. Typically, at the end of the day, we own anywhere from 10 to 15%.
Okay.
We find that if you lose control of your business because of the investors, your disincentive starts to go down every day. You wake up and go, what am I doing this for? These guys are never here, and I'm the one that's just sweating every day. And then all of a sudden, the anger starts to kick in. And
I see.
Yeah, and so we want you to be extremely motivated behind this. When you take these dollars, then what we're hoping for is, and let's just say that we invested and the value of your business is $1 million. So we own 10% of that. And someday our goal is to get 3 times our money back.
Okay.
Obviously, more would be great.
Sure.
But
that would be a success in your mind.
We're playing for big outcomes. So, not 2% returns, but we're talking about, all right, if we invest and it's $1 million, we hope that that's worth $3 million someday. And sometimes that takes a year. Sometimes that takes more like 10 to 15.
Okay.
Then there's usually follow-on rounds of funding too. So like the company starts to grow and it needs more money. So we'll probably put more in just to keep that going. But we will bring in larger funds that can write bigger checks
I gotcha.
As well.
Okay.
And so the value we bring is those relationships. So we would say, Doug, we know that XYZ fund, it specializes in this. They'd be a good partner for you. Why? Because check size, but also they can help really scale your business fast.
I see. Okay.
When you take venture dollars, you now have kind of a devil on your shoulder. When you're the only one, you have no other investors, you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. The expectation, though, with venture money is like, okay, it's got to do this. And that's not actually for everybody.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, all right, I really better think this through.
Right. But you are taking the big risk in the beginning, right? So you are assuming the big risk because those people that come in later, there is a track record.
Right.
There's something that they can base that decision on. So what's your success rate like? Are you doing pretty well? Do you need to borrow some money?
No, exactly.
Can I take you to breakfast?
There are. It's a long game. So we've been doing this since 2010.
14 years we've established.
14 years. Ding, ding, ding. And we have 3 different funds, if you will, about $100 million under that has been invested. Okay. In about 50 companies.
Okay.
And of those 50, we've had about 10 just go into a ditch, like brick wall, no skid marks.
Right.
That's not a bad outcome, by the way. We've got another 20 or 15 or so that are doing okay. They're growing like this. And it's like, okay, I can see
they're growing.
they'll do okay.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
And then we've got about 5 that are doubles and triples. Like wow, this is exciting. And then we've got another, and I'm doing the math wrong, but another 2 or 3 out of all of those that are moonshots. They're just doing amazing. In fact, you mentioned this drone technology, which I'm kind of interested in. One of our companies is called Gather, and Gather, if I just autopsy that back to how we found it to where it is today, I think we've been investors in it for about 4 years. No sales. 2 guys that were, one a very technical founder, one that can sell anything to anybody. They had a technology that takes off-the-shelf drones and is utilized for warehouse management of inventory. And so they started with those great big containers. So like Emirates was one of their customers, and they've got these 1,000,000 square foot warehouses where a guy seriously would walk around with an iPad,
a barcode reader or something.
Click, and they had in one warehouse 6 people that did that all day. And then they would download and say, okay, here's where all the containers are, and here's how much, what's come in and what's gone out, and blah, blah, blah. These guys set it up to, well, why don't we just read those things? And by the way, it was a technology that the Army was using for bringing these drones down to like 10 feet and then up to 1,000 feet, and like, a tank's coming, so it's got to, and do this. And they were like, well, that's kind of similar to a warehouse. People are walking, and a forklift's coming. It's got to be able to read that stuff, as well as read the barcodes and count everything. Anyway, so they did their first demo for these guys, and they did the whole warehouse in 5 minutes.
Oh my God!
And the look on this guy's face. The warehouse manager had his little clipboard, and he was like, "Yeah, whatever. Let's go.
I got places to be." No kidding.
And the thing flies back to the little deal. It downloads all the inventory. The picture comes up. And he's like, are you kidding me? This is unbelievable. So those 6 people now are they displaced, out of jobs? No. He takes those 6 and he's like, you guys.
I've got other stuff for them to do.
Are way more valuable. Let's have you focus on these things.
Oh, this is awesome.
So Gather is one that's a moonshot and is doing impressive things. So now, not just the containers, which are very predictable because they're the same size, they're now doing stuff for Kroger and their warehouses. So you've got, jelly and dog food and ramen soup and all of these things, and helping them. And it's really amazing.
That is really fascinating. And so did they come to you? How did you find a company like that?
So one of my partners was at a demo day in Pittsburgh, and saw these 2 guys pitch their idea to a crowd. And most people were like, nothing really interesting there. And he went up and talked to them and just said, well, this seems really interesting. I mean, they were awkwardly pitching and couldn't quite get the story across. And he saw the opportunity in them and quickly.
Wow.
And that is the tool of our trade, is just like, yeah, rough stone here, but we could polish this a little bit. This seems to be a big market. Anyway, to back to your original question. So when we invested, we put about $1 million in that company. Out of the chute, we owned about 10, 12%. And so what that means is, it's valued at about $10 million.
Okay.
So 1 million for basically 10 million value. So we owned about 10%, give or take.
Okay.
Just last week, they closed a $75 million round of funding. $17 million round of funding on about a $75 million valuation. And so where we invested at 10 is now the market saying, okay, it's worth 75. And so that's one where you're saying, okay, that can go from 10 to 75 to maybe 750. But that's what we play for. Because if that one works like that, the whole portfolio is paid off.
The boat rises with the tide. That's awesome.
I hope that makes sense. But that's kind of what we play for is
interesting.
Is meeting people like that, finding those deals, moving quickly. And in fact, one of my biggest pet peeves of this industry was when I was raising money, we could get audiences and we'd tell our story hundreds of times. And then these people would go dark.
Yeah. They're thinking about it.
But just not responding.
Yeah.
And like, is that a no? Is that a yes? Oh, sorry. You know, I was on Easter break and then my kid had a soccer game, and you're like, this is my livelihood.
Right.
What's taking so long?
I hate to be pushy, but.
And so I said, well, when we do this, let's do it different. And let's be fast. And let's look, I like your idea. It's not going to be a fit for us. However, let me introduce you to somebody.
Nice.
And so they leave thinking, wow, those folks at Dundee, thoughtful, quick. And by the way, they plug me in. If it's a yes, we try to get a deal done in 2 weeks.
Oh, I love that. Wow.
And in our emails, in our signature block is a little link that says our process. You just click on it and it says, okay, from first meeting to term sheet to closing, here's all the things we do and how we do them. So there's no questions. And because the thing I ran into was like, what is the process here? Who's the decision maker? When are we going to know? Oh, we got to go to a subcommittee of a committee of the final committee. And like, come on, this shouldn't be this hard.
Yeah, you're just going from one gatekeeper to the next until you finally reach a decision maker. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and just acronyms and buzzwords, and people just are like, it's not in our wheelhouse, but, if I had a driver, I could hit down the middle of the fairway. You're just like, what?
Oh, right.
I'm an adult. Just let me know. But, yeah, it's
I'll
crazy.
keep the crying to a minimum.
Okay.
Well, so the question, I guess, for me is what are you invested in these businesses that we were talking about in the beginning? Are you interested in these longevity type businesses? Do you tend to have a certain
No, good question. I mean,
business you're looking for, or
Yeah,
are you just the sky's the limit, man? Or,
No.
Or we stay away from
We started sky's the limit, and that was a mistake. I think what
too much.
we realize is what we're good at generally falls into things related to commerce.
Okay.
Which is still pretty broad, but I
Yeah,
mean, it's like anything related to stuff that people buy and sell. And so if it's, getting goods here, like Gather is like, well, where is it? It's in the warehouse. To making a website better, to actual direct to consumer products like Omnia Fishing is a company we invested in. Somersault, which is women's swimwear.
I've seen those before, actually.
Yeah. So anything related to that. One that's kind of really interesting is these two women in Austin started a company called Curated for You. They were frustrated, and this goes to the thinking differently. I mean, how do you approach things in your life? Like, well, what if it was done this way? Or why is it done that way? These two ladies came up with a really interesting concept of when you shop, particularly women initially when they shop, it's like, I'm looking for a white shirt. Okay, so they go to a website, click women's, click shirts, click colors, click, and you've got this whole thing. I got my white shirt. Why is she buying the white shirt? Was their question. Was it just because she wanted a white shirt? It turns out that women generally are buying for some sort of an event, something that's happening in their life. I don't care what it is. Could be a funeral, could be a concert, could be a football game, could be something. But for them, they were saying, typically women are curating an outfit around something. And their experience was they both had actually moved to Austin, and they were invited to a University of Texas tailgate, football tailgate. And they looked at each other and said, what do you wear to one of these things? I don't know. Is this just like show up? It turns out it's quite an event. And so they were searching and looking Texas tailgate outfits for women that are 33. And They couldn't find it. So they actually created a solution. And one of their customers is Saks on Fifth. And Taylor Swift was a big driver to this, that women were like, well, what do I wear? Because Taylor wears this. I want to kind of wear that. So curate an outfit for me. Almost like a modern day mannequin personalized for that person. So now they're not just going to the site, but this curated for you curates outfits. You say, well, what am I doing? Well, I'm going to the Kentucky Derby, and it's going to be in the spring, and it's going to be 65 degrees. It might rain. I'm 55. Wow, well, here's 17 outfits that you might choose from. So you're not just buying a white shirt. I mean, there's the purse and the dress and the skirt or whatever, the handbag, the coat, the hat, everything goes with it. So now the website's cart isn't a shirt that was $102. The cart is like $750, and it's everything.
It's got the entire ensemble all ready to go.
And so it's stuff like that where I'm like, wow.
Well, my wife shops for events. It's interesting that you say that because she shops based on the event. I'm going to this reception, or we're going to this wedding, or whatever. I mean, if you just start out, I need a dress, or just down the rabbit hole. But I love that idea.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's stuff like that where you say, no, that's a software solution, but making things. I mean, is it gonna change the world? No, but is it going to make your life happier? Probably. And when it's a two-sided, where the market is saying, God, this is so easy, and the retailer's saying, thank God, look at this. This is making our website more effective, and we're moving more stuff, and I think all of that's good.
I love that.
Yeah, so anything related to commerce in that. We've looked at some healthcare stuff. We just don't understand it. I do think, from my own perspective, things where people are in their, later years, the technology related to those things, super important.
I thought, as you said, peeking around the corner and seeing the graying of society is an interesting observation.
Yeah, I think there's, I mean, just making your life better, but also just, look, I'm, a 70-year-old non-retiree. I mean, what are some things you guys are doing for me? I mean, maybe the print, maybe the texture, maybe the flavor, maybe it's community that I've noticed a lot of folks our age. It's like, where'd our friends go? Our kids are grown. Most of them like us, It's kind of like, but boy, they're scattered. And then it's like dust settles and you go, where's my community?
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so the
reconnection, such a critical part.
Yeah, the reconnection, because otherwise you just wither mentally, and having that ability.
And that's a big element of the blue zone and those philosophies, that sense of purpose and community. Why do you get up in the morning? Those kind of things. But the community piece being, we talk about the exercise and the nutrition, and those kind of things are, I think, maybe obvious to some degree.
Yeah.
But the importance of those other things and how you find those, the community piece is really interesting.
It is. I think just having the ability to just shoot the breeze with somebody, but having something in common to where you're not just getting together to complain, but just sharing. It's just
just like this, which is why I just find this so fascinating. You and I and Flug. Flug is also in that same headspace that we are with all this, the longevity and quality of life stuff. And he's a bright guy. I really enjoy speaking with John, just like this. I mean,
he's a bright guy, and don't tell
really
him I said that.
No, we would never admit that to him.
But it's that thing.
I love those conversations.
Yeah. It's critical in your life. You got to have those friends and seek them out, because I'm learning that there's more and more people like this. And they're afraid to say, I'm kind of lonely. Yeah. And that's where the decline happens. I mean, as you've probably seen, some friends, maybe they're pretty well off and they just retire and they're like, we bought a place in Florida and it's great for them. I sound like I'm disparaging them, but it's not for me. And for them, it's like, God, I get up at 9 and I go down and I get the paper at the bread store. And I said, well, then what do you do? And then you know.
Well, I read the paper and eat my croissant.
And then I go home and maybe, you know, work in the garden a little bit and go for a walk, take the dog.
Cocktails start at 4.
And, you know, catch a movie. And I just kind of go, dang it. Okay. That sounds horrible.
Do you think there is so my wife and I have had this conversation about retirement and what that looks like. Mm-hmm. And I find it different. So as a 25-year government employee, I was really happy when I left the government.
Interesting. Yeah.
I didn't retire.
Yeah.
I started working on my own, but I think it's different when you say, when are you going, do you actually retire from your own business? I mean,
yeah, I think that's got to stop. I just think, you know, are you retired? I think more of it is just, what are you doing these days?
Right. What gives you fulfillment or purpose?
Yeah, because I think everybody finds, you know, it's like the guy who said, I go to the store and I get the paper. It gives you some sense of purpose. But I think when you stop doing things you love, then, you know, you're just admitting defeat. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think people are generally retiring like our folks, probably like 62, man, I'm done.
Right.
That's it. Because again, I do think people will live longer and healthier, and they will be way more productive at a later stage in their life. So keep at it. Mm-hmm. But it's just being steered into something different.
Right.
And it might be that time of your life where it's like, maybe I should, you know, I've always wanted to do is this. Then do it.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what gives you purpose.
Right.
And excitement. And
I know a guy that might help you fund it if you have an idea.
That's right. Exactly.
Doesn't mean you can't have a new idea when you're 65 years old.
Oh God, no.
Do you ever run into more senior entrepreneurs?
Yeah, but it's funny. They're like really sheepish. Mm-hmm. Like apologetic, and they shouldn't be.
Right.
Like, I got this idea, but I don't know. Then they kind of
they're not chewing the glass like they should be when they're young and needy and hungry.
Got to have that.
Yeah.
If you don't have that and the sense of purpose, and also there has to be fear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I mean, there's so many, I can't tell you. I mean, we see about, and it's a little bit of a vanity metric, but we see about 50 on the low end to 100 ideas a month. Ideas meaning companies, right? And that's across our whole team. And, you know, for the most part, the ones who say, we need this funding because I need to pay the bills and pay.
Right.
And I said, you know, that's not why.
Right.
You should be doing this.
Right.
Yeah. And again, not to be Uncle Rico and, you know, back in the day,
right.
But it's like I had 8 kids and no income, but passion to make this thing work.
I am going to make it work.
It's going to work.
Yeah.
And people were asking, well, how are you going to sell hammocks for a living? It's going to work. I don't know.
Right. Just watch me.
It's going to work. And then all of a sudden, you know, you got this bravado, and then you hang up from someone and you're like, oh my God, how's this going to work? But it just has to work. Right. So when you find someone like that, and I can recognize those qualities because I was there, and the beads of sweat, and they're like, this is going to work, and I'm going to absolutely.
Yeah. I
may have told this story about the founder of Somersault, but Lori Coulter is her name, and based in St. Louis. Here's a company we invested in. They were doing about $500,000 in revenue. And this is the women's swimwear line products, right? But I believed in these two. I saw the hustle, determination. They went from $500,000 to about $50 million in 3 years. And then, of course, the pandemic and everything flattened, kind of went down a little bit. And then all the supply chain problems with, you know, the boats stopped in the water and China shutting down. And so I'm on the phone with her and look on Zoom, and I just said, you know, Lori, my God, you know, pandemic, supply chain, China, the Vietnam shutdown, you know, the presidency that doesn't know left, right from sideways, inflation, this is killing you. But it's like all of this stuff is out of your control. And she stops me and she looks and she goes and points, Nothing is out of my control. Nothing.
Right.
And I
you
could
were
feel my ears pinned back. I was like, whoa.
I believe you.
I believe you. This is
That is awesome. Good for her.
Yeah. And that's
what it
I'm talking
takes.
about. That's what it takes.
Yeah, you got to be willing to suffer and do what it takes.
Yeah, totally.
And I think people, maybe grown-ups I think we tend to be attracted to comfortable things. You know, we're not interested in suffering anymore after a certain point.
And, you know, someone who's in, you know, our age and brings an idea and says, this is something I'm interested in. So, well, tell me, are you willing to risk everything you have to make this work? No.
Right.
I see. So you want our capital.
Right. You want me to risk everything I've got.
Got it. Well, it's not going to work.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. That's great. That's
fun. Mark, this is so interesting. I really am fast. First of all, thank you for the conversation on
Love doing it.
The sauna and the cold plunge. I love that.
Your
conversation.
listeners are like, "Am I on? Why am I here?"
No, they're getting it. They're getting it. These are real. You know, we're all looking for ways to improve our performance, to improve our well-being, our minds, all that stuff. We should all be seeking that out, right? The people that are listening are curious people. And so I think that stuff will turn them on. And then I love what you're doing. And I would like maybe, you know, come back in 6 months because I know you've got another chapter in your life, as do I.
Sure.
So
Oh, I've got another chapter for sure.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I've got another chapter, and it's and to some degree really just starting. You know, it's exciting.
Totally.
I'm not going to slow down, and I hope maybe through some, you know, either inspiration or just through, you know, girth and action, you're going to make something happen.
Right.
You know, and other people that might be listening say, well, I could do that too.
Absolutely.
You know? Why not?
I hope they are inspired that way.
I hope so. There's just absolutely no reason not to.
That was the common thread in the comments from the first episode was, wow, that was so inspiring. Because a lot of people have it in them and they just need whatever that little push is sometimes. So
they do, and too many people say, and I will say, particularly in the Midwest, you get beat down a little bit with, and just it's our agrarian way. Like you know, boy, there's a catastrophe around the corner, so be careful, Doug.
Right.
You know, just don't take too many risks here.
Right.
You know, and we need the opposite of that because the ones who take these risks and fail are probably the better bet the next time because they kind of go, dang, what did I do wrong? Okay, here's what I'm going to do this time. That means they're just going to be even more determined. And
I love that.
You know, anybody listening to this can do it. With the advent of the cloud computing, with AI, with access, it doesn't cost as much to start a business than, I mean, when we started our first website, it took like 6 months and $50,000. And it still was horrible. And you can do something like that today in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And be up and going and kind of, wow, is it working? Are people, you know, just put a landing page out there and just be going. And so I just tell people, just what's holding you back? Oh, I got a mortgage and I got this and that. And I said, well, then this isn't for you.
Yeah.
That's all.
It's like when your parents would tell you, I don't know if your parents told you this, but here's my dream. Well, that's nice, honey. Just have a backup plan.
Just so true.
You know, I used to get that all the time. I want to be, okay, that's great, but have a backup plan because that's not going to work.
But what if it doesn't work?
You know?
Yeah. And that's and that's why Silicon Valley is because they encourage that stuff and they're surrounded by risk takers who support risk taking, and there are monumental failures that come out of that area, but that's why they're going to continually be where all the technology successes are, because it just continues to feed off of itself. And we need more of that here. And the other thing is to think with a few more zeros. You know, like, well, wow, my goal is to get this to 100,000 in sales. So what if it was 10 million? How do you get there? What's holding you back? And what about 100 million versus 10 million? And for some people, like, I don't want to do that. Cool. Okay. But for the other ones, like, wow, I actually hadn't thought of that.
It's like Tim Ferriss in this book, in the beginning of the book, he says something to the effect of, okay, I've got this 5-year plan. Well, can you get it done in 6 months?
Right.
What's keeping you from getting it done in 6 months?
Right.
Man,
That's
think
exactly
big, right? It's
exactly
hard to think
right.
big sometimes.
And I said you were sharing a quote with me that I really liked.
Can I read it?
Yeah.
This Kurt Vonnegut quote?
Yeah.
Slaughterhouse 5, remember that guy?
Sure, totally.
Catch 22. Out on the edge, you see all kinds of things that you can't see from the center. Big, undreamed of things. The people on the edge see them first.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's great.
That's exciting.
It really
man.
is. It is.
So get out there on the edge, right?
Get on the edge. Why not?
I love it.
And the key for anybody listening to this is always ask, what if? I don't care what you're doing with your career. The best solutions to problems come from people who say, well, what if we did it this way?
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, I got to tell you, a lot more than you think is somebody gets frustrated in a company because they take it to their supervisor, and the supervisor takes it to the whomever, and the whomever goes to the next. But it's like, well, what if we did it this way? Because this is taking too long. And I want to do it this way because this will save us an hour a day. And the supervisor kind of goes, because we do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, but what if we did it this way? Yeah. Hey, Doug, cool it. All right. Just go.
Get back to the cubicle.
That person who kind of goes, you know what? I'm going to fix this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go ask people, is this a problem for you? Say, yeah, it's a problem, but nobody's fixing it. Well, you know what? I'm going to fix it. That's when we start to hear these things of, how'd you come up with this idea? Well, I worked at ABC Company. I saw that this was a problem. No one was solving it. I was super frustrated. I went to all the people who were way smarter than me, and nobody was going to fix it. And so I did it.
I decided to do it myself.
Yeah. And so those are the ones that are on the edge.
Yeah.
Versus the ones who are
in the center.
In the center, just kind of
this
going,
is how we do it.
Yeah, I'm going to keep doing
beautiful,
it. Yeah.
Man. I hope that resonates. There's someone listening that it's going to resonate with, and they're going to take that chance.
I hope so.
Probably land flat on their face and start calling us for help. But, no, take the risk. I think that's fantastic advice.
Or blame.
Man.
They'll blame. They'll call you and blame us.
That asshole told me to.
Fletcher.
Oh, no. Oh, that's awesome. Mark Hasebroock, man, it is always a pleasure, brother.
Yeah.
It is so good to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm excited for you. Yeah, thank
right.
you. Have
Let's
a great
do it again.
weekend. Thanks for listening, everybody. Check. You guys have a website or something?
Yeah, it's just DundeeVC.com or DundeeVentureCapital.com. Yeah.
Excellent. Go check it out.
And I can be reached, Mark at Dundee VC. Just reach out. We're very responsive.
If you've got that idea and you've been holding it back, why not float it out and see what happens?
See what happens.
Take a risk.
You just never know. Get out of the center.
You never. I love it. Thank you, Mark.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next Friday. Bye-bye.